The next speaker is Brandon Lewis. We have known Brandon for many, many years. He is the founder of the Academy for Professional Painting Contractors. Brandon is also a best-selling author. He's a man of many trades, and he does everything so well. He's an esteemed coach. He has dedicated his career in coaching to help transforming service contractors, businesses, along with assisting his clients to properly evaluating their companies when they're ready to sell them. And, many of you don't think about this at this point, but at some point you might want to sell your business, and he has a lot of experience in that. But today, Brandon is going to do a master class for you, helping you get better leads, bigger jobs, higher conversions, all at lower costs while driving profitability to the next level. And I know as an EstimateRocket user, you all are very geared because everything at EstimateRocket does revolve around profitability. In order to get to the next level, you have to make sure that each and every job is profitable, and we offer you profitability in real time every single day. So Brandon will be our next speaker, and we are so thrilled to have him with us.
Well, you are very kind. It's asking me for you to make me a presenter so I can show some slides. So
sure.
I don't know how to ask you. I switched. I switched to Zoom about 3 or 4 years ago. I used to operate in this, but they've changed everything.
I hear you.
On the panel here, so it's a little
different.
They've
actually made it a lot like Zoom recently.
They have.
It's actually not as bad as it used to be. So.
All right, so let me pull this puppy up, and we will get right into
it. And Brandon, make sure at the end of your presentation, if anyone wants to direct message you, they have all that information.
Yeah, I'll do that. Let's see.
Okay.
I'm just gonna. I can't see me while I'm doing this because I probably don't.
Yeah, you got to put yourself up at the top and put your screen you're sharing down below it.
Oh my goodness. Here we go. Let's see. How about I try this? We'll see if I can try this. I don't know if this will work. Nope, it's not going to work. Okay, we're just going to present. I'm just going to present straight to the screen. As long as you can see my slides, we'll be good.
Yep. There you go. I see them.
All right. Are we good here?
We're good.
Can you? Okay. Guys, first off, you're in good hands. EstimateRocket has been a go-to resource for our members for a decade now. They've been stalwart supporters. Our members have grown with them. They've got great support. A lot of companies are a 1-800 number, but the Drosts really, they care about folks. If I had as much empathy in my little finger as Kathy Drost has in her body, or vice versa, if I had as much empathy in my body as Kathy has in her little finger, the world would be a better place. So I've enjoyed meeting them. They're nice people. They've got a great program, and it allows you to do much of what we're going to talk about today, and that is to get the highest value from your past clients. This is something I've been talking to home service clients about for a decade now, and it's so critically important. I'm going to get right into it and tell you where we're headed. First, I'm going to give you some indispensable marketing metrics and concepts. Number 2, we're going to talk about your market. Okay, who are you going after with this particular type of marketing? Your message, mediums, timing, because timing is critical. And I'm going to give you a few sales tips. And so we got a lot to cover in a short period of time. So what are the primary problems that painting contractors face as it relates to cold leads? Okay, cold leads are leads that you get on the internet, Facebook, Google My Business, and while they are great, they are not the best leads you can get. And depending on how long you've been in business, cold leads at the very beginning of your business should be a larger portion, but toward the end of your business, 5 years in, 10 years in, like it should be, in my opinion, a very small portion of your leads. Cold leads are expensive and unpredictable. All of you know this, especially during the winter months when there's less demand and more people seeking work. And all of us have experienced some situation where Facebook, Google, you name the platform, it just changes overnight, and the leads go up, it gets complicated, your yield goes down. And so the methodology that I'm going to talk to you about is far more insulated from any type of market changes. Leads are price sensitive. Cold leads are price sensitive, especially from online sources, even if you've targeted them properly. And whereas repeat and referral leads are a lot less price sensitive, and we'll talk about why a little later. Cold leads close at low rates. And so that means you can spend a ton of time out there calling on folks and really have a much lower yield on the sales standpoint. They produce lower transaction sizes. We're going to get into this in a moment. Not only do the leads convert lower, but they also are smaller. And we've seen this in national franchise data. I've been a consultant for a lot of data, a lot of franchises over the years. And so I've been able to see hundreds of units in what the data bears up. Cold leads cannot refer you. So when you spend all your money on cold leads and ignore everyone who's bought from you before, ignore everyone who has requested an estimate that did not close, there's no bonus value to those leads, meaning they're not going to refer you because they don't even know you yet, right? And then finally, we're in an uncertain inflationary economy. Hopefully things will get better, and there's more competition coming in every day. And so that really means you need to have a firm basis in your business. And so we're going to talk about a proven process for increasing repeat and referral business. And it'll make you a lot more money. And it's not only good for income today. When you go to sell your painting business, and I've helped dozens sell, and this goes for any home service business, but when you go to sell your painting business, one of the key things that people look at is the size of your client list, the systems that you have, the data that proves that you've got this large percentage of repeat and referral customers. It essentially becomes your equity in your business. Not all of it. I mean, your business systems and a few other things, goodwill, and some of your online resources are also in the mix. But that core, when you can look at a business and say, hey, I've got a $2 million business, 1.4 million comes from repeat and referral business. If you just talk to this list of 2,500 people, well, that is a lot more appealing to someone buying your business than, hey, we get all our leads from Facebook and Google, and they're small and they're expensive, and we hope that nothing falls apart with you. So who are you to make such promises? My name is Brandon Lewis. I grew up in Arab, Alabama. I'm big on relationships. That is my beautiful family, my wife, my two daughters. One of my dreams for the last 15 years was to build a new home that looked old out in the woods. And so a few years ago, we realized that, and they'll bury me here. I love being outdoors with my friends. They're some of my fraternity brothers. I'm very connected in my community because it's important to me. And these are some of our clients. I've been doing this for a long time. I've worked with 500 painters in 6 different countries, and we offer a variety of different coaching programs, purchasing groups, online services. But the reason that I do this is for these people. I mean, they're freaking awesome. We had the best conference we've ever had. It is less like a conference. It is more like a family reunion, and the relationships just get closer and closer. I'll say this and then move on. When we first started our Painting Profit Summit, we had to scrape together enough people to have $1 million panel. And this year, we had a $3 million panel. And next year, it will be a 4 because some of those guys are actually well over 3 and 7, 8 million. And so it's just been fun to watch this group grow over the years. And a lot of what I'm going to talk to you about today has to do with my political experience. Before coming into painting, I ran political campaigns. I wrote a book, and Kathy said best-selling. I'm not best-selling. That might be Brandon Pierpont. Brandon Lewis is not best-selling because there's not very many people that buy How to Raise Money for Political Office, although I do have another book in the works for the painting industry, hopefully to have that done this summer. But when you're in politics and nonprofit, the entire business is communicating with the list. It's the whole business. Like there's no tangible service really provided. I mean, in news, you could argue that the articles and the content is, but look, there's nothing physically, tangibly being done. Whereas in painting, you can take these same concepts and apply them in painting, and the ROI is infinitely higher than in politics or publishing. And so I publish our state's largest conservative news alternative. I'm a Christian, and I often tell people that if you won't stand up for your core values because you're afraid of losing money, and you're afraid of what other people think, your real core values are money and approval. And I think life is short, and in our businesses and in our personal life, we just need to be able to speak the truth. And so write this down. This is very important. I want you to make this commitment. that you will make your business decisions based on math and not emotions. You cannot deposit emotions in the bank. You go to the teller and say, I'm feeling pretty good about my business. Well, she didn't say I'll add 10 grand. Like, it's all about the math. And we're going to get into the mathematics of this right now. And clarity is very important in your marketing program in general. And so something that I'll often tell our guys, and then I try to get them to commit to doing, is this. I will build my business on the second transaction and the first referral. Not one cold lead, one night stand marketing, but I'm going to build my business on that second job that I do for that client and the first referral they give me. Once you decide that's your goal, there's a whole lot of methods that you must abandon, and there are a whole lot of things you must do. It's like if you set a goal for walking around the neighborhood without getting winded if you're in bad shape, that's one goal. If you say that I'm going to run the Boston Marathon and I am going to place in the top 20% of my age bracket, well, that's a different training regimen. That's a different level of diet and conditioning. And so when you set lofty goals and outcomes, the methods are immediately aligned with the goal. But if you don't have this goal in your company, you're really missing out on, in my opinion, what is the best thing about running a painting business, and that is building this large list of people that love you. So here's some mean old math. When people I've done about 2,500 diagnostics, and whenever I get on the phone with somebody, we start talking about math. And generally speaking, painters hate it. They don't keep up with a lot of numbers. They don't keep up with their metrics. One thing beautiful about EstimateRocket is it helps you do that in a variety of ways. And when you have good numbers, you can make good decisions. A lot of folks really kind of just look at their bank account and maybe their paint store bill, and that is not enough data to give you the information you need. Most folks, when I talk to them on the phone, I kid you not, struggle to tell me how much money they made. I'm like, that is the number one metric is, cash flow to owner. So here are a few things about the numbers. Repeat and referral jobs are roughly 60% larger than cold leads. They close at 60 to 65% versus cold leads. Referrals, which are bonuses, I'm not talking about that here, close at about 50%. Marketing cost of a sale for repeat and referral business is roughly 5 to 10% of cold leads. And when you market to this group extensively, what happens is you have fewer wasted sales calls. The admin headaches, the expense goes away or is greatly diminished. And that's why, if you're gonna mine, right? If you decide you're gonna be a miner, you wouldn't want to send your miners in a mining company to a played out mine, one that had already been mined. You'd want to send them to a mine that had a real rich vein. And so when you're putting together your marketing plan, always go after that rich vein first, and then maybe the played out mine second. But most people do it in the opposite direction. So let's look at this scenario here. Guys, zoom in if you're out there to take a look at this. This is what a lot of painting businesses I work with look like. They've got 70% cold leads, about 10% referral, and maybe 20% repeat. And so in a scenario like this, that means you've got 500 leads coming in, and they are of this type. The close rate for cold leads is about 30, referrals about 50, repeat leads about 60. And in this scenario, you're going to close 190 jobs. Your cost per sale is going to be about $300 for cold leads, about 50 for referrals, maybe 30 for repeat leads. And so your total revenue is 812. If you're using production rates and job costing, like you learn in EstimateRocket, then you're going to have about $389,000. And if you're looking at 30% net to owner benefit, you would make $233,000 and some change. Most of you are not at 30% net owner to benefit. I think that's where you should be in most cases, especially until you scale past about 1.5 million. But it's a good rule of thumb, and it can be done. I see it done consistently. Well, let's say, what happened if we only changed one thing on this slide? Scenario 2, we've decreased cold leads from 70 to 50. Okay, that's just a 20-point swing, and we have increased the percentage of referral leads by 10% and repeat leads by 10%. Well, look over here at what happens. Your total revenue goes up to 985, your GP goes up to 478, and your income goes up to 287. And so that is like a $50,000 plus bonus just for changing the quality of your leads in the category. Same number of leads, different quality, different categories. Now, if you get, and this is not where most of our members are, they're doing a little bit better than this. If you get to where just a quarter of your leads are cold, 30% are referral, 45% are repeat, all of a sudden the same 500 leads produce 1.2 million, and you end up with 358,000. And so in this particular situation, which I've watched people graduate to over and over again, you'll see a 30% increase in jobs, a 49% increase in sales, a 53% increase in your income, and $125,000 more in your pocket. And that's why I am so adamant about this process, because it makes such a big difference. Everything is downwind from marketing. Marketing, then it goes to sales, and then to operations. And if your leads are small and expensive and hard to close, everybody else down the chain is going to have a harder time. Okay, so we want to make sure that those leads are larger, they close at higher rates, and that they cost less to acquire. So how do you do this? Key concepts. First, your clients do not remember who you are. I often ask people that have a brand new baby, 2-3 years old, can you tell me the name of the nurse that delivered your child? And about 9 times out of 10, they can't tell me. And if people don't remember who brought their firstborn child into the world with 18 hours of labor in probably the most intimate setting a service provider ever interacts in with a person, if they're not going to remember you because you stained their deck, they're just not going to do it. You may think they do, but I've never seen any data to support it. Communication always precedes leads. Every time you get a lead, an estimate request, it came from communication. It could be your van, it could be a yard sign, it could be somebody remembering you randomly. It could be they saw a billboard, they saw a social media ad, but it always is preceded by communication. And so when you communicate with a list, guess what happens? They buy more often and they refer more often. It's why every time you go to a store that has their act together, they try to collect your contact information and consistently market to you after you purchase. You find this with online purchases, gifts to political campaigns. Give your political candidate of choice some money and see if they contact you for money again. Of course they do, because they know you're the most likely person to repeat that behavior. And so when you do not try to retain your clients, when you don't have any type of process in place, it would be like if you were a farmer and you bought 100 cows a year, but you didn't believe in fences. And so you didn't put a fence up, and every year you had 7 cows left and you felt pretty good about it. And then the next year you buy 100 cows and 3 of the cows of the 7 stay on the farm, and now you've got 15 cows, and now you're feeling pretty good, right? And so it's not about it's good that you have some cows on the farm still, but we've got to ask the question, what happened to the cows that we caught and released? What happened to the folks that were our clients, but now they're working with another painter? They don't stop painting just because you don't communicate with them. They just simply seek another service provider, or they seek a service provider, but they don't always find you the second time. In most cases, they don't. And so you've got to have a client list and communication methods. And when you do that, it equals increased equity and income and certainty. And so let's talk about reactivation versus retention. This is kind of a wonky term. Reactivation is when you take from the list. When you communicate with a list using mail, email, phone, text, ringless voicemail, in some cases in commercial, maybe even physical drop-bys, and it's a campaign over a 45-day period, and you might touch them 12 times, 13 times, 14 times. And you're like, you've got a good offer, a clever offer, and it's essentially, hey, we're getting our schedule together for the spring, and you catch that demand, or hey, we're putting together our final production schedule ahead of the holidays to build up winter. So we've got 2 times a year that we like to reactivate clients, and that is with a full court press reactivation, where we take from the list. Tell me what you're going to be painting in 60 or 90 days. We need the work. We need the work. We need the work. And in essence, we kind of treat our customers like a human ATM machine. We are pulling the slot machine handle on thousands or hundreds of people that are in the EstimateRocket database through outbound communication. But you can't do that more than a couple of times a year. If you treat people like a human ATM machine all the time, it does not work. So retention is monthly communication via newsletter. And that's primarily to build name ID in their minds. Who's my painter? Oh yeah, it's that guy. Most people can't tell you who their painter is. They can tell you who their auto mechanic is, or their hairstylist, or their attorney, maybe, if they use them frequently enough, but they don't remember obscure service providers. They just go find them again the way they found them the first time. And it's really, to me, about a personal connection. People don't think of painting businesses as brands. They think of the people far more. Oh, that's my guy. Who's your painter? It's not a brand. It's a dude. It's the owner. It's the estimator. It's whomever they have a relationship with. And newsletters make you very comfortable. Reactivation basics. You need to have something entertaining or relevant. We have holiday campaigns we've created, best customer in the world campaigns that are written from the dog of the owner. I know it sounds hokey, but I'm telling you, in a world of bland, boring corporate throw up that is redundant and repetitive and similar, you've got to do something different, because if the message does not catch someone's attention, there's no point to even send the message out. And when something doesn't grab attention, your conversion rate goes down, which means now your cost of lead goes up. So being clever with these things makes a big difference. And we'll use mail, email, text, voice, and social, and typically we'll get 10 touches over 30 to 45 days. Best time to do that type of campaign is early spring, late fall. Here are some of the reactivation mistakes. Cold corporate lookalike copy. Emotional prejudices against marketing mediums. Some people are like, well, I just send out my thing by my newsletter, or I just do text, or we just do phone, or we just do mail. That doesn't make any sense. There are 4 ways you can reach people. Actually, probably 6 if you really want to look at it. You can email them, you can text them, you can call them, or you can mail them. For residential primarily. And with commercial, you can physically stop by. You could do it in residential. Some people do, and it's effective, but it is time consuming. So don't let your personal prejudices about a marketing medium keep you from using it. So you wouldn't want to paint a house if you had a brush roller and a sprayer and you knew that this project was going to take all 3 tools. You wouldn't say, well, I'm just a brush guy. I'm going to brush thousands of square feet of siding instead of spraying it or rolling it. It'd be crazy. But we do it in marketing. I don't know why, but we do. And then folks think if I just communicate a little with my list occasionally, that will get the same amount of repeat and referral revenue out of my client list as if I barely ever do it. And that is not the case. There has to be regular, consistent communication. You can't be lazy. You can't take shortcuts on this if you want to maximize the ROI from it. So retention basics. We use a emailed newsletter. We send it by physical mail every month. Our members do. All months except for reactivation. We never skip one. It established personal connection. We have irrelevant, entertaining content in there, like articles, funny stories, trivia, crossword puzzles, comics. I know it sounds crazy, but painting is boring. People don't read things about painting. You don't read things about painting in your spare time, probably. You're watching other more entertaining things. And so our job is to build a personal connection, make it connect with people, get them very comfortable with you, and then sneak in the occasional information about painting. And we also have non-relevant, what I call semi-relevant content, where we recognize clients, client of the month, where we reward and recognize people for giving our company referrals. If you want folks to give you referrals, you have to demonstrate that, hey, other people are doing it. This is part of what happens in our relationship as a service provider and a homeowner or a commercial facility manager. Highlight projects so that people go, oh, okay, this is what they do. But you can't, that needs to be a very small portion of your newsletter, believe it or not. And then the rest of it needs to be kind of irrelevant content. It's the Trojan horse. If it's not engaging or entertaining to them, they're not going to read it. They'll throw it with the rest of the sales stuff. You want it to be different. And then we do put a tiny offer in there that changes every month. But honestly, most of the time, people don't even pay attention to the offer. They just get so used to seeing your newsletter. They know you. And when it comes time to refer or to repeat, they just call you because you purchased the real estate in their brain that creates the evoked set for painting. Okay. So I'll tell you a funny story about the Mary Kay lady. We went to a wedding for my brother-in-law and sister-in-law. This has been years ago. And my daughter was about 3 or 4 at the time, and she's out dancing during the wedding, having a great time. It was a fun wedding. And there's a lady dancing with her, and I was like, I know this lady. This lady must be a friend of the family. I have really good, like, I feel like I've met this lady. Well, here's why I'd recognized her. I went up and walked up to her, and I said, hey, how are you? I thought she was somebody's aunt in the family. I said, how are you? I said, it's been a while since I've seen you. I assumed I'd met the lady before. And we started talking, and she finally said, oh, I'm Julie's Mary Kay manager, whatever the title was. I said, really? So we've never met? No, we've never met. And it dawned on me a few days later, the reason I recognized her is because I saw her face in a newsletter that came to my house because my sister tried to convince my wife to sell Mary Kay cosmetics. She essentially ended up just buying a bunch of Mary Kay cosmetics and didn't sell much. But the reason I thought I knew her is because I saw her face in the newsletter all the time. So it is always funny to me when you teach something to a group of people and when you've done it for a living and then it works on you and you don't even realize it's working on you. And so that's how powerful these things are. So here are some examples of very simple newsletters. Here's the Hughes family just talking, and it's a very plain, kind of folksy newsletter. To me, when things don't look corporate and polished, but they look personal, they get a better connection. I think a lot of folks overcook it a lot, and people just want their painters to be human. And here they are. They're just talking about their family. They're recognizing folks that gave them referrals. They're recognizing customers of the month. It's Groundhog Day. It's probably it's February, and they're in here just saying, well, Groundhog Day. How did that cook up? I mean, that's interesting to everybody. Valentine's Day in other cultures. We love our customers. They list them out. And so connecting people with things that they will actually consume in a way that's not super salesy. It's giving to the list 3/4 of the year, taking from them a quarter of the year. That is a good balance. You can't just take, but you can, after a while, just give almost. We've got guys that do nothing but the newsletter every month, and they have so saturated their list that that's all they have to do. So once you get a flywheel moving, usually you don't have to, when you first get it moving, like you got to really crank on it to get it even moving. But after it's been moving and the momentum is built, you only have to do this to keep it going every once in a while. And so that's what you want with your marketing. You don't want to have to start it and stop it in lurches with feast and famine lead flow. If you do the communication consistently, it works. And finally, I'll add this. When you go to chamber events, B&I events, trade shows, which you should do, when you collect all these cards, you've probably got them sitting in a drawer somewhere in your office where, I bet this person could send me some business. I bet this person could send me some business. You never follow up with them. You get too busy. Stick those people on your newsletter list. When you have 100, 200 B2B referral contacts and they're getting your newsletter every month and you're the only painter that communicates with them, guess who they're going to refer to their friends and family, even though they may not be your customers, although some of them will eventually become your customers. The newsletter is a panacea for all kinds of things. Put everybody on it that you meet that you think can help your business. Let's talk about a few sales things because I've got some time here. Then I'll take questions. I want to talk to you about 5 factors that increase conversion, job size, and prices. We've already talked about making sure that your leads are high quality, okay? We're assuming now that we got high quality leads and they're coming into the sales process. So what can you do using EstimateRocket and the tools that they have for you to make sure that for every job you go on to estimate, that the transaction sizes are larger, that the conversion is higher, and that you make more money and that you can command premium prices? Here are a few. I've got a whole sales course with all the tools and templates. It takes me 4.5 hours to teach it. I got 15, 20 minutes here left. I'm going to hit the high points and then take questions. So number 1, you've got to think like the client. Number 2, you've got to use messages that matter. You've got to bury them with proof. You've got to employ all the mediums, and you need powerful, never-ending follow-up. So first off, when you've been doing anything any length of time, you just completely forget to think like the client. And most people, and I've been using home service people for years. I'm not handy. I can't paint. I've never painted, even though I built up and sold a large painting business. It's only probably about 30% of the time that when somebody comes to my home to give me an estimate, and makes pledges and promises about the quality of the services that they'll be providing and the timeline and everything else, that the truth matches the promises. About 70% of the time, it is not what was promised, and you have to micromanage the people. A lot of times it turns into a mess. Sometimes you have to have people come out and redo the work. That's what people live with, and that's what people think about our industry, not because you're a bad person, but because the home service industry falls down on the job a lot. And so when you come out and you just email a PDF, pet the dog, you don't have any persuasive elements in your sales process, you miss the mark, because these are people. They're worried about sexual assault. They're worried about their home being cased. They're worried about drug use, felonious behavior. Often they have young teenage daughters or granddaughters. They got all kinds of concerns. And then things that, are you going to make a mess? Are you going to smell? Are you going to have loud noises? Are you going to interrupt the peace of my home, which is my sanctuary? If something goes wrong, who do I talk to? What happens if after 3 or 4 months this stuff starts falling off the house? If you don't answer any of those questions directly, then you're not going to connect with them. And if everybody is just giving PDFs and prices, who will they go with? The cheapest price. You have to think like them so that you can send messages to them that matter. Here are a few that matter. Do you background check and screen your painters? If you do, tell them about it. What's your warranty? What's your guarantee? How many people have used you? What have they said about it? What's your licensing? What's your insurance? What's your story as an individual? What do your crew leaders look like? What's the process going to be like? What kind of precautions are you going to take to make sure that you protect the things in my home? These are big things that you need to be talking to your clients about before, during, and after the sale. You've got to bury them with proof. If you were accused of a judge of running a crappy painting business, like you're standing in front of the judge and the jury and they say, I accuse you of running a crappy painting business, you could not just simply say, well, oh shucks, judge, I'm a pretty nice guy. I rest my case. You would be convicted. Instead, what you would do is you would bring all the evidence. Here are my background check certificates for all our guys. Here's my lead safety certificate. Here's our safety program. Here are 435 wonderful glowing reviews and customer satisfaction surveys and emails and text messages. Here's our licensing. Here's our certifications. Here are our memberships and group. Here's my biography. Here are our teams, and here's how we train them. But they're not just going to take your word for it. You need to bring third-party evidence in from other sources, because homeowners are desperately looking for forms of proof that indicate your promises that are spoken will actually be physically delivered in the experience. And it so seldom happens. And also, you got to remember, you're selling something that's the cost of a middle-class divorce, a new used car, $20,000, $30,000 in some cases. It's expensive. It's a huge decision. Many people will spend more money when they paint their house on that one line item than anything else for the next 3 years in a single check or a transaction. So selling that like it's a can of beans on Amazon is not going to work out for you. You've got to really sell like a white-collar professional if you want to make white-collar money. Use all the messaging mediums available. What I see very often is, we break up the sales process into pre-positioning, presenting, post-positioning, and follow-up. Most folks don't really break it up. You got to answer the phone in a specific way. You've got to send information about your company by email, mail, and text in advance of arrival, if at all possible. Show up, photo identification lanyard, give the client a gift, walk through an overview, get their commitment to the process. Use a diagnostic survey to ask them questions. Get them talking, not you talking. Ask smart questions. You'll get good answers. And when you ask smart questions in a way that no other contractor does, in the mind of the client, they're like, wow, he's asking questions. I bet if this guy's this thorough and prepared, and if he really knows what I want, I bet this project is probably going to go better. You need to measure, use production rates. Some of you right now, I know for a fact, are using EstimateRocket for guesstimate You're not using the production rate feature. You're plugging in stuff with a guess. Maybe you're just plugging in by the days or plugging in by the hours that you guess. Don't do that. Use the production rates. And then leave them the big, huge book of social proof. It's a 3-ring binder. We bribe them to read it. For many of our owners, it's 200 or 300 pages of just proof. And when somebody flips through 200 or 300 pages while you're out in the car, they're far more likely to buy. You need to present your estimate on the spot. I recommend that you also print it. I know that EstimateRocket has the capability of doing that. And bring pre-printed materials. Come back in, talk about your company story. What are the 7 to 12 things that make you different than the typical painting contractor that are aligned with what the client really cares about, not just your feelings? And then ask for the business. A gentleman at the end said that he did not, if the estimate took longer, which typically means it's bigger, they would email it. I'm here to say, if you give the owner the option and you say, listen, this is a pretty big project. I can go out in my car and get this ready for you today, or we can schedule another visit for us to get back together. It may take me 30, 45 minutes. Which would you prefer? They'll always pick waiting and getting it that day, and it saves you time, and you can present in person. You'll never close via email at the rates you close in person. Okay, so do both. Always do both. It's never either or. It's in person and printed, and then it's emailed, text messaged. Use all the mediums, right? Don't ever say, well, I just don't like this. I don't do this thing. Paper mediums, presentation mediums, email, text, phone, personal conversation, scripts. Use every tool in your tool belt. Don't just use a few. Powerful, never-ending follow-up. I don't know if you know this or not, but it takes the average American 58 days to make a $500 major home durable goods purchase. Many of you are selling things that are $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 on average, $15,000, $20,000 on average. It takes people a while to make the decision. So you need to follow up by mail, email, phone, and text in a reliable cadence that is tracked long enough to get an answer. And even when we would take our unconverted leads from the previous year at the end of every year and call people that are 9 months, 12 months, sometimes even 18 months old, I would end up closing $40,000, $50,000 in work. It just takes people a long time to make decisions. So don't give up right before you close the sale. And a few other things about follow-up before I take questions. You end up making hour for hour. This is worth writing down. You end up making somewhere between 10 and 20 times more money per hour when you do follow-up versus when you do sales. Meaning, if you sit down for an hour and a half and you reach 60, 70 people with follow-up that's effective, you're going to make a lot more money for that hour of follow-up than you'll ever make presenting one estimate for an hour and a half between drive time and doing the presentation, driving to the next appointment or back to the office. And I often see that people will put 95% of the money into an estimate, meaning they've marketed, they spent the gas, the time, they've presented it, and then that last 5% of effort and time that it would take to close the deal, they leave out. And I'm also here to tell you that the more personalized you can make your follow-up, even if it's manual, let the automated stuff run by all means, but there needs to be a lot of personal follow-up that's layered in there, because very expensive things that are very large transaction sizes and industries where trust is low, that requires a lot of robust personal selling that's customized. And when you do that with your follow-up, you'll get a lot better response. So that's all I've got, guys. I've tried to make sure that I stuck to the time. I think if we started a little early, we've got about not quite 15 minutes for questions. I would be happy to take some. Tom, whenever you are ready.
I am monitoring. I look for any. If you have questions, now is a good time. And they usually come in a little slow. I will.
That's fine. That.
Also trying to. They've changed the question platform, so I missed a few questions from the last speaker, which I've just been asking. You mentioned two things that that really stuck out to me. One of which is the concept of repeat business being 60% higher and 60% more profitable. I think those were the two, or something close to that.
The transaction size is 60% larger. The conversion rate tends to be 60 to 65 versus 25 to 30 or ish for cold leads.
Yeah, that's huge. In fact, listening to that and some other things that you've said in the past, I'm working diligently to come up with a much more effective reactivation campaigns built into EstimateRocket, because I think that's a key. Really,
I think it is.
I see it.
I think if you could put something in there that was like, select these people, click this button, they'll get this over the next so-and-so, maybe 30 days.
Yeah.
You could write some of those up. I mean, you do email and text from your platform. Of course, they would have to,
Sure.
you can't do everything automated. You'd have to pick up the phone, make some phone calls,
Sure.
send some postcards, send some enveloped mail. It all works together. I will say this, Tom, it's kind of interesting. I've spent a lot of money on advertising and marketing, sometimes millions of dollars in, 30 days we are running a campaign.
Sure.
And when you use multi-step, multimedia marketing, and even when you look at large national organizations like Geico and Progressive, you think they're always doing it, but they're usually like the first week of the month. They hammer the airwaves, they hammer the mailbox, they hammer everything, and then they're quiet for 3 weeks and they hammer everything. I mean, there are some that continue to go, but they've learned that same money compressed makes more for them than spread out over the month. And so with your campaigns to your client list, that's really important.
What tool do you recommend for that type? Because one of the things for us is we try to be primarily transactional in terms of what we send out, because as it is these days, it's hard enough to get. It's funny how spammers seem to be able to get things into your inbox, but we don't, and they're actually legitimate, one-to-one transactions.
Well, email is getting weaker and weaker, and it is getting harder and harder to maintain opt-in lists, and because Google and Yahoo and everything else are so inundated with spam. And one thing I would recommend to your guys, it's kind of weird, and it's counterintuitive. You would think if I don't ever communicate with my list, and if they only hear from me occasionally, they're going to be a lot less likely to opt out.
Right.
It's the exact opposite. If you start communicating with them as soon as the job is done, they're like, oh, okay, I'm going to get emails from this person. But if they don't hear from me for 6 months and it comes in and they're not used to seeing it and they're not conditioned to interact with it, they're like, oh, I don't need this right now, so I'm going to opt out of it. And so it's weird. There's so many things in marketing are counterintuitive. You'd think, okay, this is far better, and it's not. It's not.
Yeah, it's interesting.
There's all kinds of MailChimp, Constant Contact. I mean, and there are different platforms that do it, but you got to be careful not to ruin your domain in the email boxes. But it's another reason to make sure you've got text, voice, and mail working for you, because I think email is going to continue to be more and more problematic.
Yeah. And the direct mail, is there a particular service you recommend for the direct mail?
We are in the process of working on that. A lot of folks just use local printers to get, they send them the templates, they send them their client list, they get it out the door. But we're working on, I've actually got proposals, but they came in right about the time the summit was there, so I'm sitting on them. And when I get back from Expo, I'm going to look through them. And next time you ask me that question, I'll have an answer.
Excellent. Look forward to that. We got a couple things coming in. Ashley Wright said, great tips, great core values, thank you. And then on the question side is, I missed the part about making a monthly newsletter engaging and personal or something, and examples, ?
Okay. So you would think this is kind of funny. The thing that people like primarily about our newsletters, and because our members get feedback, and we've got hundreds of people doing it, so like it's a good. I mean, it's not like, hey, here's a cute idea. It's like, hey, these people have been doing this for a decade now. Like, if we know what's going to happen, and so it's that personal connection. People are like, oh, I saw that article about your kid learning how to ride the bike, and I didn't, and I didn't know that you were a person of faith. I am too. I didn't know you were into the Red Sox. I didn't know that you like camping. Even if they don't like what you like, when you know something about somebody personally, I don't know what happens. Like it fills out the profile. They're a human. They're somebody you could drink a beer with, go on a walk with. It's just different. And for example, and you think about these things, the personal side of the business, recognizing clients, referral sources, etc., talking about your staff, talking about your family and your life. Yeah. I don't know if any of you have ever listened to podcasts or ever listened to talk radio or anything like that. But if you listen to somebody long enough, even though you have never, ever, ever met them, read from them, whatever it
Yeah.
is. Like, I wept when Rush Limbaugh died. I did, because I'd listened to him since 7th grade. I was like, this
Wow.
is sad. I'm like, I've never met this guy. Why should I care? But it's like when you listen and listen and listen, and you, after a while, you create some kind of friendship,
Yeah.
and even like
Yep.
a character in a book. You read 5
Yeah.
or 6 books with the same character, you feel like you know the character. The character is fictional. They
Sure.
don't even exist. And so this storytelling mechanism is ingrained in our DNA, mentally and in our heart, I think in our spirit, that when we listen to someone, when we talk to someone, we get connected with them. And that is both good and bad. If it's a good influence, it's fine. If it's a bad influence, it needs to be discarded. But it's more about personal. So to recap, we have personal stories about the owners, and people think, well, why do people care? I don't know. It's often what I say in marketing is, I don't have to know why it works. I just have to know that it works, and if it works, I need to do it. And so you don't always have to know every reason to use a best practice that works.
Sure.
We have articles that are seasonal, like 10 ways to save money on your home heating bill. I mean, just stuff like that.
Sure.
The strange origins of Valentine's Day. 13 ways to surprise your spouse. Whatever. I mean, it's the stuff that if you go by the magazines and you look at the magazines on the way out of the grocery store, it's not about painting. Here's a brush, here's a roller, here's the new paint. It's like, here's a story about Martha Stewart who's painting. It has nothing to do with, I mean, they're not reading it because of the painting. They're reading it because of the Martha Stewart. And here's somebody got a divorce. Aliens are found in Texas. And then it's like, recipes and puzzles. That's what people buy. It's entertainment. Sure. And so you've got to put a little bit of entertainment and personal connection in your newsletter. It can't just be, and I see people do this, 15 reasons you should stain your deck, color of the month, color of the year, here's our services.
Yeah.
Do you need your cabinets painted? Like, if it's all just about you and painting, that thing is not going to work.
Yeah, you gotta reach people personally, and those are the things that, by the way, I love your drip emails. Like, one of the only ones that I know. And you're not even, I'm not a potential client, but I just really enjoy, you tell great stories in your emails, and they're actually compelling to read. So good job.
Well, I try to. I mean, it's hard, right? And painters and home service people are hard to get through to begin with, because most of them are men and they're stubborn and hard-headed. Not all of them, but they know everything, just like me. We're all cut from the same cloth, and so you've got to make things engaging and compelling if you want folks to take notice.
Yeah. Crazy.
Well, that's all I've got. You have worked me for everything I know.
All right. There's just a couple more quick ones here from Velvet. She just said, thanks, Brandon. We're definitely going to target our client list more intentionally now, and very helpful and inspiring. And,
very good.
And I think and I think the rest of the ones are just answers back to my questions. So
very good. Well, guys, I have a 10 years worth of video content on YouTube. If you go there and hit the subscribe button, just type in Painters Academy YouTube. Some of it's a little irrelevant. Most of it is relevant. And there are some almost like mini courses buried in there among all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's in there. And we have a podcast, which is basically just the audio of the videos. If you like, I don't like watching things. I like listening to things. And so if you're a listener instead of a watcher, you can look for our Painters Academy podcast. And finally, Brandon at paintersacademy.com. If you've got a question, if anything I told you today was like new, then I would email me, and maybe we set up a diagnostic, because everything that I talked about today, while it may be new to you, it's honestly just business basics.
Sure.
It's fundamental, basic business systems for outbound marketing and a few tips for sales. And so if anything, like if a bunch of stuff was like, that's new to me, that's new to me, that's new to me, there's a good chance there's a bunch that's new to you in operations and recruiting and hiring and finance and admin. And so getting with somebody that can take an unbiased look at your business objectively, who understands the metrics and the systems, it can help you get a good plan forward in 2025.
And I know you can do that.
I try my best.
I do.
I try my best. I work with the willing.
Yeah. I got one last question.
Okay.
Roger, I answered one previously, but I thought it was related to the previous story. Roger, is your question about follow-up campaigns? I think he was wondering what a follow-up campaign looks like, I guess, in terms of
so here's
sequence.
well, I'll close with this because I'm about to be out of time.
Sure.
So when you leave, the first is you try to close that job on the spot. Okay, you can't get them all, but I will say this, and I should have mentioned it previously. Your on-site close rate is probably, and your average transaction volume is probably the number one indicator of how persuasive your sales process is. If you can't close on the spot, if it's like 10%, 15%, that is not good. It needs to be like 30, 40% of the ones that close on the spot. If it's any lower than that, of the ones that close, then there's something missing, wrong in your sales system. So I like to, when you leave, some people are like, I give them 5 days or 3 days. I'm like, no, call them the next day, text them, email them, we have these little postcards. One says, sorry, I missed you. The other one says, thanks for your time, depending on if we get them live or we don't. I'd go after them immediately with all mediums, mail, email, phone, and text. If you don't get them on the phone, obviously, if you talk to them, there's no need to do the rest, except maybe drop the thank you note in the mail. And then give them 3 or 4 days, touch base again, give them about 7 days, and then just keep moving, and then have a very simple tracking process so you know all mediums have been used, when were they used, and then finally, it's less important. There's 2 things. You need to have, especially for those of you that employ estimators, and if you are the estimator, I have found it tends to work best if you have a day that is your follow-up day, maybe 2 days. Mine was Tuesday and Thursday. I didn't like going a whole week. But on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I pulled out the call book, and this is back when it was like paper, and it was very easy, and it was in a 3-ring binder, and it was listed by alphabetical order. And when people can't get their follow-up straightened out with their estimators, I say go back to paper until you can figure out how to do it digitally, and they make a lot more money. As long as it's not about how it's kept, it's about is it done. It needs to be done, no matter how it's kept. It's best to be kept well and done well, but if you can't get it done well, let's just keep it however we can to get it done. But I do recommend that every time you reach out to somebody, you use all the mediums. You make your phone call first, and then if you don't get them, you leave a message, you send them a text, you send them an email, you drop a postcard, and then you give them some time to breathe, and then you check back in. And then if they say, hey, it's going to be a couple of months, calendar that a couple of months out, and then run that same process again until you get an answer. And it's also good to develop some templates for specific problems, objectives, or project types. Then that way in your follow-up, it's not just, have you read it? Do you have any questions? Are you ready to go? Are you ready to go? Are you ready to go? Giving them some additional information, testimonials, videos, time-lapse of you painting a specific thing, and making a kind of a library for that really makes your follow-up more effective and tailored. And then that's really the big thing about follow-up, is that you got to be consistent and you got to use all the mediums.
Yeah, all mediums. Awesome. You're the best, Brandon.
Tom, I appreciate you, appreciate your darling wife and your team over there. We send folks to you because we know that you've been around a long time and that things are always getting better over there at EstimateRocket. So guys, if you're already an EstimateRocket customer, which I assume most of you are, make sure that you're utilizing the entire program. Go in there and look and say, what is it in here that could make me money or save me time, that because I've just been too lazy to get in there and go through the tutorials or get help. Use the thing, fully. Don't just use it partially. If you've got a spray rig that has 4 guns and you're painting a large project, don't just use one of them. Use all of them if you can and get moving quicker.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, Brandon. I know you got another engagement today, and good luck on that. You're going to be going all day long, I hope.
Yes, it's fine. I'm built for it. It'll be all right.
Cool. Very good.
All right, take care, guys.
Thanks again, and we'll see you.